Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I love the Olympics, especially the Summer Olympics. So, by the time you hear this, the initial games will have ended and the Paralympic Games will should be in full swing. So, for today in the huddle, we're talking through 5 lessons that I pulled from these amazing world-class athletes and their stories. I don't know if you all were obsessed like I was with watching the Olympics. I mean, I watch every year, but this year just seemed special. I think it's because the families were back. We were post-pandemic. It's in Paris. I mean, it just was a special year. And I also watched more because during one week of the Olympics, unplanned, I was on vacation, and so we would spend the day vacationing, doing all those things. And by the end of the day, we were all huddled around the TV watching swimming, gymnastics, shooting, volleyball, breakdancing, basketball, track, all of the different sports. So, for this episode, as some of you may recall, the huddle episodes are designed to be short. 15 minutes or less is my goal, with 5 lessons, tips, ideas, something that you can take with you in a really short amount of time. So today in the huddle, we're talking 5 lessons learned from the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. Let's go. Welcome to Anelra. Have you ever thought about unlocking the full potential of yourself or the leaders in your organization? Imagine the impact of executive coaching. Ready to transform your leadership impact? Visit us at www.anelratalent.com. Anelra, coaching solutions that work. Lesson number 1, the importance of showing grace when people aren't at their best. So Femke Bol is a runner, and she was on the 4x400 relay team for the Netherlands. An aside, but when did the Netherlands become such track stars? This year they were everywhere, which was amazing. They've done some things different in their training, but I won't go there because it's a huddle. But Femke Bol, she was running the last leg, and when she got the baton, she was in 4th place overall, and probably 20 meters behind the lead runner, who was from the US. And she walked those runners down, and she passed the lead runner just before the line to give her team the gold. It was such a fun race to watch. Even though the US lost, it was a really fun race to watch. And what I learned after is that in 2023, just a year before, in the World Championships, which, is the big race every year that you don't have the Olympics for track and field, she was also running in this last leg in the same race and was about to cross the line in 1st place and fell. Literally, probably, 10 feet before the finish line. It was called the Dutch disaster because another Dutch runner fell on that same day in almost the same position. And so, it was heartbreaking to watch what happened to them last year. And it just made me think about what it takes to come back from failure. What has it taken you to come back from your biggest failure? She said after the race that it wasn't easy to forget what happened in that last relay, but her team was around her and they put her at ease. So the lesson I'm taking from this is, how can I show grace to someone else when they aren't at their best? How can I, when I'm not at my best, rely on other people to help get me through? Because we're all going to have some very bad days. We're all going to make mistakes. Cue Hannah Montana, if you know that reference, but we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to make mistakes. And I hope when someone else is having that version of a bad day, or when I'm having mine, that I can either show grace to them or be able to rely on and lean on those around me to make it through. So lesson number 1, let's show grace. How can we show grace when other people aren't at their best? My second lesson is stay open and stay curious. So I'm an Olympic super fan, right? So the day the Olympics started, I cleared my calendar that night so I could watch the entire opening ceremonies, the replay that evening. And when it started, I was so turned off. So this year's opening games was just really different than years before. They came in on boats before it was in a stadium, so there wasn't a crowd, really. They weren't really walking into the roar of the crowd. And I really just wasn't feeling it. I missed a few things. Apparently there was a mockery of the Last Supper, which I missed. But it's a 4-hour event. So yeah, I missed a couple things, but I definitely saw most of it. But what I thought was interesting is by the end of the show, both the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, I felt like I got the vision. I remember saying, "Oh, I actually really liked this." Like it was quirky, it was artsy, it was Parisian. Paris is one of my favorite cities. It was everything. It was the lights on the Eiffel Tower. It was seeing all the sights of Paris as they had someone kind of running through the city, going through all the, big sights of the city. It was the way they did the torch lighting with the balloon. It was just so creative. And oh my goodness, Celine Dion. I mean, when she sang that song, I was near tears and I didn't even know the words, right? I think it was in I guess it was in French. I didn't even know the words, but the emotion you could feel from her singing that song was just amazing. So once I caught the vision and understood it, I really enjoyed it. But it made me think about how many times I judge something really early on, right? It's almost like an initial reaction to something that's different than we expect is to dislike it. So what I'm choosing instead is to stay open and to stay curious. I'm trying to put down my critic hat and put on my curiosity hat, choosing to be curious about things I initially don't like or understand instead of being critical. And I feel like as adults and people, so I'm trying this in all areas of my life, and it was kind of reinforced to me at this Olympics moment. But with social media and the media we consume in general, it is so easy to get stuck in our ways, to put on the critic hat, to put on the kind of what's wrong hat, and I've just noticed this in a lot of areas of my life. So what I'm choosing now is to stay curious, to be more open to change, and to see what the end will be, right? Change my automatic response from critic to curiosity. The third lesson, let's talk about Novak Djokovic and what he taught us about what it means and how much it means to play for or work towards something bigger than ourselves. So I watch tennis throughout the year and play a few times casually each month. And if you watch tennis, even casually, I'm sure you've heard of Novak Djokovic. He's from Serbia. Some say he's the best male tennis player we've ever had, and I'm sure there'd be some who would debate that. But nonetheless, no one can deny he is and has been dominant in this sport. Now, he has some personal ways of interacting with others, some things he said that were insensitive, but his willingness and his ability to win is undeniable. He has won, I think it's like 24 major titles. And in the Olympics, he won the gold medal in men's singles tennis. And when he won, if you go watch this video, and he's someone who's won a lot, but when he won, he said this was the biggest success of his career. And I thought that was interesting because he's playing against the same people he normally plays, right? Tennis is a global game, so they play against global players all the time. He's actually playing in the same city and even on the same courts from the French Open, I'm assuming that he's won on before. But after this match, he was crying and weeping like I'd never seen him before. He was like shaking and using words like just being totally overwhelmed. And what I took from it is how much it means to play for something, work for something that is more than you. It's bigger than you, it's bigger than me. He said he was playing for his country and it just meant more. So it made me ask myself, like, what goal do I have that if I were to achieve it, it would just break me down? It would be so overwhelmingly positive that I just couldn't even believe it. What are we reaching for? What are we striving for with our family or with our work or any area of our life that if we were to achieve it, it would be, amazing. And I feel like those definitely aren't maybe the normal goals we set. I have growth goals in my business that I hope we achieve. I have personal growth goals, fitness growth goals. And if I achieve them, I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be happy. But I can't see being just overwhelmed. But in my coaching business, we do give a percentage of what we make to different charitable organizations. And eventually, we want to be able to give enough to change people's lives forever. Kind of that's the goal, change people's lives forever. And that would be something beyond ourselves and something worth weeping over. So Novak's response in his interview after just reminded me how much it means to play for, to work for something bigger than yourself. And it kind of reinvigorated me to keep putting the energy behind those things that are beyond me and far above me. Number 4 is lean in to the challenge. So this one is for all my basketball fans. So in the men's games, they had a few, challenging games. And then one of their games, the US team was playing Serbia and the US was behind. And so this, these mega stars on this team, these amazing athletes, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and others on the team just turned it around and won the game, right? Just by a couple points. And in the post-game interview, they were talking to Steph, and he said something I thought was really interesting. In his reflection on it, he said, that was fun. And it caught me by surprise because the basketball teams, men and women's, in the US play with a lot of expectation. In the US, they're basically expected to win, right? So when they're down, in my mind, it feels like nervous, like I'm anxious for them. Um, but Steph's response was, that was fun. He actually said, that was the most fun I've had in a long time. To dig deep and win with this group was special. And he said he thanked God that he was able to stay confident, in that moment. So the lesson I took from that is we can choose our perspective on the challenges we're facing. I'm not saying all challenges are fun. I recognize he's playing a game and life can be very difficult, but some challenges can be fun if we approach them that way. And I just thinking about the difference in your mindset, in my performance, if I'm leaned into the challenge or if I'm kind of leaned back and I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm worried. So, what I'm thinking is how during challenges do we maintain confidence in God, confidence in ourselves and what we've been called to do, confidence in those around us, and lean into the challenge instead of leaning out? To see the challenge as a positive opportunity because labeling is important. And for some people in performance settings, so like singing, dancing, public speaking, playing an instrument, when they feel those jittery feelings that you get, maybe in your stomach or you're sweating, you start to have these physical symptoms. A lot of times they intentionally label it as excitement instead of labeling it as nervousness or worried or anxiety. And that's because being excited about an opportunity creates different emotions and energy than being nervous or worried about an opportunity. So the lesson is the next time I'm facing a challenge, the next time you're facing a challenge, how can we lean in? How can we stay confident and label what we're feeling in a positive and optimistic way with a belief that it is going to go well? So, how can we lean in to the challenges? And number 5, my last lesson is yes, you can. So, first, that phrase is something I've heard many trainers say before. If I think about on the Peloton app or just, other trainers, it's something I say to myself when I'm working out and it's getting tough. It's a reminder. Yes, you can, Arlene. Yes, you can. When you want to quit, it's a reminder to stay in it. And I thought Quincy Hall, who is a track star for the US, is an amazing example of this. So he was running in the 400-meter race for the US, and he was in like fifth position. And they're, about 100 meters out. So three-quarters of the race in, he was in about fifth position from the finish line. And he just turned it on. He came back and he won, right? And he was the definition of doing it his way. So first of all, he was wearing like two grills in his mouth, which I've never seen before in the Olympics. And his form, especially that last 100 meters, was so different from anyone else, right? It was like it was sheer will that willed him to win that race. So afterwards, in several interviews, they were just asking him, like, what were you thinking? You're three-quarters into the race, you're in fifth place. Um, what were you thinking that made you push and just kind of give it your all and believe, yes, you can, to get to the end? And he said a number of things. He said one of the things he was thinking about was the hot practices he had been running by himself. He said he was remembering how it worked, how it felt to work two jobs and pay tuition when he was at junior college. He said he is remembering all his before days, right? So when he was getting his own food, no cafeteria, no study hall, kind of like when he didn't have support for the track sport that he's in, like he has now, when he didn't have all the support he has now. And he also said that year, this year particularly, he had faced a lot of adversity. And we know that he'd lost two brothers before, but this year he faced a lot of adversity and had let go of things that were a distraction. Listen, There's this concept called the adversity advantage, which means that when many difficult problems are solved, when we are transformed as people, is often during times of adversity. Because challenge and adversity forces you to get rid of distractions, right? It forces you to focus on what is most important in this moment. And that's what Quincy talked about. He said he told himself when he was behind in fifth position, they said, "What did you think? Like, what were you thinking?" He said he told himself it's anybody's race. Like, and I was like, wow, the confidence to be in fifth position, 3/4 of the race in, and to still believe it is anybody's race. Yes, I can. And yes, you can. So I'm inspired by him to remind myself and remind all of us that no matter what we're facing, with God's help, yes, you can. And to remember that we have before, right? We've gone through things before, whatever our version of running in the heat by yourself, or our version of working 2 jobs to pay for junior college, or our version of trying to accomplish something without the support we think we need or deserve. To remember how we came through things before. And when we face the next challenge, to remember that. And whatever it might be, say to ourselves, yes, I can. Yes, you can. And yes, we will together. So shout out to Quincy Hall. Shout out to Steph Curry, Novak Djokovic, the people who created the Olympics game opening ceremony, and Femke Bol and her team that supported her. I mean, these are some amazing stories in these games. It was so much fun watching the games, and I'm so thankful for all the lessons that they gave us, right? I'm appreciative of these Olympic athletes and everyone who works to put on these games every year, who show us what it means to focus on something, to work for it, and to achieve it. So my 5 lessons are: show others grace when they're not at their best, choose to be curious instead of being the critic, work for something bigger than ourselves so that when we achieve it, we have the overwhelming joy and satisfaction that comes from working on believing in something bigger than ourselves. When challenge comes, lean in instead of leaning out. And yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, I can. So that's it. That's the huddle. So thank you to everyone who comments, reaches out, subscribes to our email group or pages on the different platforms. It all helps us in continuing the podcast. So as always, you can reach me on Instagram at Arlene_pace_green. And until I see you again, be well.
Now available. You deserve to love your job. How to find your purpose and enjoy your life. You may not have learned this growing up, but you deserve to love your job. You will spend more time at work than in any other activity in your life, and you deserve to love it. Research tells us that people who love their work are twice as likely to enjoy their life. This book will help you create a blueprint to help you fulfill your purpose, love your job, and live the life you were designed to live. Now available at Amazon.